Brought to you by Penguin.
Kraftwerk by Uwe Schütte, read by Sam Peter Jackson. Foreword. This general introduction to the astounding phenomenon that is Kraftwerk is the result of 4 pivotal moments in my life. It all began the first time I heard Autobahn on the radio. I was probably 8 or 9 years old at the time, and the song could not fail to make an impression on me, a German boy always dreading my parents taking me for a drive on the motorway. I suffered from severe car sickness, and of course you are not allowed to stop when driving on the Autobahn. The unusual German band name also stuck. Meaning power station in English, Kraftwerk was an unusual choice of name for a pop band. Also, the lyrics were in German. Pop music inevitably meant English lyrics, which I could not understand, save for the few obvious keywords. Pop bands always came from Britain or the US. Elvis, the Beatles, Buddy Holly, and a few others were the musical heroes of my childhood and early teen years. Though the small provincial town in which I grew up was only just over 100 kilometers from Düsseldorf, where Kraftwerk were working in their Kling-Klang studio, my next brush with their music came about 4 years later. By then, we had moved into a village in rural Bavaria. Unhappy and an outsider amongst the village youth, I holed up in my room busying myself with collecting stamps, reading, and listening to music. My first record player was a gift from a kind neighbor, who passed it on when she got a new one. I must have been about 12 years old then. Now I needed records of my own to play on my pretty, though modest, portable player. I bought a copy of Deep Purple's In Rock and Kraftwerk's Radioaktivität, Radioactivity, from a school friend. I loved both. The latter featured some pretty odd cover artwork. It looked like an outdated Nazi radio set. Because it was an outdated Nazi radio set. How weird. Pop music on an album whose artwork imitated one of Hitler's instruments of propaganda. By then, Kraftwerk's music was neither pop nor rock. That much I understood. The album sounded more like a radio play, an odd transmission from a future past, containing some pop tunes and lots of strange noises and sounds. It was odd, too, in that it praised nuclear energy, which many people in Germany strongly opposed at the time. I listened to Radioaktivität for many years and never grew tired of it. When and where my vinyl copy disappeared out of my life, I can't recall. I probably sold it at the point when CDs became all the rage. For several years, I didn't bother with Kraftwerk, and this was the period in which they released one groundbreaking album after another. Needless to say, I deeply regret my stupidity in flogging my copy of Radioaktivität. Whenever I come across the album now in a second-hand record shop, I check the inner sleeve to see if it has my name on it, in my immature handwriting from some 40 years ago. My next meaningful encounter with Kraftwerk happened about a decade later. I was a university student in the late 80s, and at some point I saw a scruffy poster in a Munich second-hand record shop. It looked strangely familiar, like a cheap reprint of a coloured photograph from some time around the 30s, and showed 4 men wearing neat suits and sitting at a table underneath a tree. A very German image. Despite its nostalgic look, I recognized the group of men. They were the members of Kraftwerk. The peculiar juxtaposition of a retro photograph and futurist avant-garde electronic music immediately made an impression on me. At the time, I had been listening to all sorts of music, neoclassical new music, jazz on the avant-gardist ECM label, US punk, and English indie rock. But not Kraftwerk. Seeing this image on the poster rekindled my interest. And I had also read several times about Kraftwerk's considerable influence on the British and American electronic music I was listening to at the time. What's more, I felt that the incongruous poster expressed something deeply complex about my country and the difficulties I and my friends had with being German. A strange feeling of not being part of the country's history and its national identity, which was overshadowed so harrowingly by the crimes of the Holocaust and the horrors of the Second World War. Yet there was also a comforting sense of belonging to a naive childhood version.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?